Hello and welcome to MagicBox, the show where we bring together all stakeholders in our children's education. I'm Isaac Carmignani. On today's show, we will be interviewing a busy mother and PTA president in one of our schools. But first, the headlines. The nation's wealthy places pour private money into public schools is a study cited in the New York Times and its findings. From bake sales to gala auctions, private groups are raising an increasing amount of money for public schools in wealthier communities, highlighting concerns about inequality. In Coronado, California, for example, local education groups, which support about 3,200 students in 5 schools, raised more than $1,500 per student in 2010. Yet state funding for education had fallen. Chancellor Carmen Farina has conditionally appointed 42 superintendents. There are 15 new superintendents. Of them, 8 were hired this school year. Changes to the Chancellor's regulations, among other things, raise the qualification standards and expectations for superintendents. For example, they must now have at least 10 years of pedagogic experience. The Daily News reports that one of Queens' most overcrowded districts gets a welcome addition. The new annex at IS 230 in Jackson Heights will include space for hundreds of students, as well as a library, cafeteria, art studio, and a gym. District 30 in northwestern Queens is often cited as the city's second most overcrowded district. And now to our interview with Karen Schumacher, parent and PTA co-president in one of our schools. So Karen, it's nice to have you on the program today.
It's good to see you again, Isaac.
Yeah, same here. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How is it that you're involved with the New York City school system?
Well, I have an 8-year-old right now, and I'm lucky enough that she's a fabulously bright child, and we're lucky to be able to go to PS 150 over in Sunnyside. When we discovered that we were going to be having a child, we moved to Astoria because District 30 is known for its excellent schools, and we wanted to be sure that we could be a part of that.
Wonderful. So she's at PS 150 in Sunnyside. Is that a general ed program, or is that a gifted and talented? How
It's
does
a
that work
wonderful
for her?
school that has a range of programs. It has a dual language program, which is very popular. It has a general education program, which is one of the best in the district. But it also has a gifted and talented program, and that's the program my daughter is in.
Wonderful, wonderful. So how does that work? How do you get a child into gifted and talented anyway? And how do you juggle
It really
this?
is. In New York City, what you do is when your child is 4 years old, you submit them for testing. The children are then ranked, and those in the 97th percentile and up go into a citywide pool of applicants. And if you hit 90th percentile and up, then you can go into the district-wide pool. I was fortunate enough that I got the district-wide, and from there you rank the schools that you want to choose from. And in District 30 we have 4. We have 122, PS 150, PS 166, and then a school over in Roosevelt Island that allows children to come there as well. And we were selected to participate in 150.
Wow. Okay. So she's in PS 150 until what? The 5th grade, 6th grade?
The school itself, Gen Ed, goes up to 6th grade, but the G&T program only goes till 5th grade. And then the students from PS 150 matriculate into PS 122's Academy, the middle school program.
So as we were talking, this is kind of how you got involved in parent advocacy because of the issue at the middle school part at PS 122.
Right.
How did that work out? Tell us that story.
Oh, it's worked out wonderfully. It's all for the best. PS 122's middle school is called the Academy. It's highly ranked. It's one of the top 10 in the state, if not the top. And PS 150 has historically matriculated their G&T students directly into the Academy. In the fall of 2012, there was some brouhaha with the DOE, and they thought that it would be a better use of 122 to make it into a Gen Ed K through 8, thereby eliminating the Academy. That caused a huge uproar in the district because this is what many parents would call the jewel of Queens that they were threatening to dismantle. It's a school that should have been a model for other schools, not something to be destroyed.
Okay.
So a bunch of parents came together and were advocating both to get seats, middle school seats for the other Gen Ed programs in the district, but also to make sure that PS 150 continued to go to 122 as we had been promised when we enrolled our children in kindergarten.
So how did that finally work out?
Well, we had a lot of support from a lot of people. The CEC was instrumental in getting the parents together and introducing parents from 122 to the parents from 85 to the parents from 166 so that we could all together be a larger voice for change. We held a rally at City Hall, we met with the Chancellor, we attended PEP meetings. There was a whole range of options that we pursued. We had a lot of wonderful press. The local papers were very kind to us in elevating our issue so that there was an awareness of it. And finally, the Chancellor himself came out to 122. He saw the school, he met with us, he met with the teachers, and he agreed that this was a fabulous program that in no way should be tampered with.
And so now, so your daughter can now go to...
She will continue to go to 122.
Go to PS 122. Now, how does that work for you? Because from what I know of the locations of these schools, this is not necessarily easy. You don't just put your child on a bus and get her to school.
No, the school buses have this odd way of thinking of it, in that if you are more than 5 miles from the school, not by as the crow flies, but as the route goes, then you don't get busing. So for me, I take the train at Ditmars. I have to transfer to Queensboro Plaza, transfer to 7, and get her over to school. It'll be much easier once she's in middle school because she'll be able to walk to 122, but for now it's a heck of a commute.
So you have your child in a situation where before you go to work, you have to take 2 trains to get her to school, then come back to the train and get to work. And this is all to get a good education for your daughter. Well, that's
the most
admirable.
important thing,
Yes.
I think, for most parents is making sure that their child has the best.
Yes, that's so true. So now at PS 150, you've gotten involved beyond just being a parent. How is that? You're on your PTA?
I'm on the PTA. I started with the SLT, and I did that for 2 years when I joined when she was in kindergarten. And this year I've taken on co-presidency of the PTA.
That's a job, considering everything else on your plate.
It is. We have a fabulous group of parents. There's 4 of us who are highly involved. We spend at least an hour every morning in the school doing everything from distributing flyers to delivering children who arrive late, to speaking with parents about their issues, to helping the supply room move their boxes. It's whatever needs doing, we do it.
So I imagine you have to be very organized in order to make all this happen.
I wish I were more organized, but the truth is that as a team, we all bring our strengths, and together we make it happen.
Wonderful, wonderful. So where would you like to see things go as far as parent advocacy? You're a very organized person who has a lot of irons in the fire. How would you like to, what are there any tools or things that you would like to see happen in the next 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to make this a little bit easier, perhaps, for parents to
It's hard
to be
because
involved?
I think the biggest problem with parents is that they simply don't know. They're not they don't feel informed. Our school has really made a push to set up a PTA website, a Twitter feed, a Facebook page to try and make sure that however it is that the parents want to consume the information, that we make sure we provide it in that format. I don't know about other parents, but my child, if you put a flyer in her backpack, she will eat it on the way home, I swear. So it's nice to have
That's
a
how mine
website,
was, too.
a Facebook feed, someplace else that I can
Well, I've caught you on Facebook, and I see you stay very updated. If there's ever anything that's going on, it's in a timely manner. It's right there on your page, and every other page that you're involved with. I've seen those.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a very positive thing, and I commend you for what you're doing. Do you have any goals to where you want to see maybe your PTA or your school in the next few years?
For our PTA, personally, we have a school that has so much wonderful diversity, and yet, unfortunately, our PTA is not as diverse as we'd like it to be. We have a lot of very involved G&T parents, but I'd love to have some English language learner parents. I'd love to have some special needs children's parents to make sure that we're really representing the whole student body. Another barrier is language. Unfortunately, I only speak English. I'm working on my Spanish, but I'm embarrassed by it at the moment. So, but we need to have more Spanish-speaking involvement on the PTA so that we can communicate with all our parents. We're missing out on such a richness out there if we don't.
Yes, and you're in a very diverse part of Queens where there's many languages that are spoken. Yes, that's good. So is there anything else that you passion that you have that you'd like to say before we close this out?
Well, I think a passion of mine personally is, with all this emphasis on Common Core and testing, making sure that we allow the children to be children and support the whole child, not just the intellectual development. Too many schools are cutting down on their recess time. They're cutting down on their arts. These are things that are absolutely crucial because, and there's a lot of talk of this with the overdevelopment of ADD in children. If you allow them time to exercise, if you allow them time to get up and get those fidgets out, perhaps we wouldn't have these problems. But how do you merge that with a culture that says if you don't hit those test scores, you're out?
Yeah, that's a big issue. Now, I've heard in some schools they've tried doing a recess in more creative ways because of overcrowding or because it's being cold out in the winter. So doing recess and doing calisthenics and things like this in the classroom. Is it anything like that you've ever heard about?
There's a lot of wonderful programs. The Move to Improve program, the Tai Chi in the Schools program, all of which bring physical activity into the daily classroom life, not just the recess with the classroom, to spend 10 minutes out of every hour just doing a stretch, or if you're learning math, well, learn it by marching. You know, there's wonderful things.
Right.
We're lucky enough that we also have an arts program at recess called Arts for Recess. It's run by Unity Stage, where we bring in a guest artist 3 times a week in the winter to help engage the children by dance, by song, or by something, so that they're not just sitting there passively bored in the auditorium. That's the last thing in the world that we want, and it's the last thing in the world that's good for them.
Yeah, that's the thing, because the old classic thing was give them a DVD and let them sit in the auditorium for a half hour, but you're not engaging them.
It's not stimulating their mind, it's not stimulating their body. It's like giving them Cheetos instead of an apple. If you can give them apple, let's give them an apple.
I actually was talking to someone who was working on a program where it would work in the gym, and it's kind of like a basketball game. It's called Faceball, and the idea is that you have discs on the court with perhaps the letters of the alphabet, and you have 2 teams that square off, and they're given a word to spell, and they have to shoot from the location of the letter that they are spelling out. So if it's the word today, they start at the T and then at the O and so forth. And then whoever gets it first comes back to the center, tells the coach, you know, what the word was, how to spell it, how to pronounce it, and whoever gets that first gets the point. And so this can be done actually during a gym class or during recess, and you're both exercising the young people and you're educating them.
Because they're not going to know that they're learning. They think they're playing. And what child doesn't want to play? If any way that you can make learning a game, you won.
Yes, and you can do all sorts of things. You can do the chemical elements, you can do algebraic equations, lots of things that you have to remember by rote using the game. So there's lots of ways, and I'm speaking to this because we live in a crowded city where we're trying to make things happen that perhaps are done in the suburbs in a totally different way because they have the space, you know, and so...
Well, then here's the question for you. How do you get that message out to the schools? How do you let them know about these fabulous programs, and how do you get them to sign on for them?
Those are what we're wrestling with. I think we've all been wrestling with this, right? Because to communicate with our schools, it seems like, and with our parents, it seems like one communication is not enough. I mean, I've often found that I need 6 or 7 ways to say something in order to get it out there, and then there's still people that didn't. And then you have people that are not on Facebook, they're not on Twitter, they're not on any social media. We need to reach them as well. And this is what hopefully, you know, people like yourself can brainstorm a little bit in the next 10 or 15 years, and let's get something, you know, even better than what we have, you know.
Exactly.
But Karen, it was nice to have you.
It was so nice to be here.
So
thank
pleased.
You for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for coming. So in our studio today we have Amy Bavona. Amy, nice to have you with us at our studio today.
Thank you.
Amy is a parent of 4, is it you were telling me?
4 children.
How many teenagers are in that group?
I have 2 teenagers and 1 preteen.
So you have some middle schoolers then, obviously,
Yes.
there. So that I know that is a challenge. They're learning so much at that age, right?
Yes, it is.
Organization is something that middle schoolers have difficulty doing, organizing and planning their time, and they lose track of a lot. How are you able to deal with that? How are you able to organize yourself in order to manage?
Well, that is definitely a challenge. Multiple children, multiple needs. One of the ways I found that benefits me is to organize my time. I try to spend after school at least 1 hour per child. That in itself is challenging because there are other issues that come in. There's cooking dinner, getting clothes ready for the next day. It is an ongoing daily chore. But pre-planning over the weekends or when I have time off definitely helps, and it's necessary. I've also found that resources like Dial-A-Teacher are very effective in helping with some of the problems that children face as they grow, different types of math, English, preparing for tests, and seeing that I'm a busy person, I need those resources.
So Dial-A-Teacher is interesting. That's a service that I think the United Federation of Teachers runs.
Yes.
with phone banks, or I think now they even do live chat, and a student can log on, and that can help parents that may not be familiar with some of the curricula that their student their child is dealing with.
Hmm.
What would you say are some of the most important issues affecting parents today?
Time management and having to deal with the fact that most parents work at minimum of 8 hours a day.
And you
School,
factor in a commute, it's going to be around 10.
absolutely. Schools run 6 hours. Uh, there's a balance there. There's an
Yeah.
overlap. And that is something that many working parents have to deal with. They have to try to include their workday with the day of the child, with the amount of time. And that's probably one of the most difficult things to balance.
And then you have the summers, right? Because 2 months there's no school there. So
Mm-hmm.
there's been a lot of talk of having more creative schedules, some talk of extended days,
Mm-hmm.
extended in both directions, early and later. There's been talk of extended school years where you go year round so that you accommodate the reality of a
Yeah.
working life, a working family.
Somehow I think the children wouldn't like that idea,
No, they probably would not.
but parents, I think that would benefit parents as well. Again, there are some parents that may argue that by having the children home, they're missing out on a substantial part of childcare. Some children can't afford to have children home alone, especially if they're minor children in the home, and that may introduce another factor of providing or obtaining childcare. But it's a double-edged sword. I think that these discussions are helpful, though. A lot of parents go through the day thinking about these things, but there's really no conversation.
Yeah. So after school, we're talking after school. We're talking being able to help with their homework,
Mm-hmm.
and then what about things like the arts and so forth? How is that beneficial? Music. What's the benefit there? There's a lot of talk of just ELA and just science and why that's not good enough. Can you speak to that a little bit?
I
in your
can.
experience?
Two of my children are into the arts immensely. My oldest daughter is dances. She's a professional dancer. She's fantastic. She has danced with Alvin Ailey and has put a lot of her time into that. And my other daughter is a gifted musician. However, I do feel that the arts is definitely something important with children in general, especially at the ages, young ages, even leading to adulthood. Finding them a way to channel their energy, to focus. Music focuses the mind. It benefits math. It encourages math skills. Language. Music is a language.
Yeah, there's been some research surrounding that as well.
Yeah.
But that can be a real challenge for schools, either because of overcrowding, as we had a previous guest talk about on our show, that there's been barely enough room to just have students, let alone rooms that you set aside for band and so forth. And then there's also the issue of money that these things cost.
Well, that's why I think it's important for parents to look at ways to fundraise. I think it's important to because of the fact that we have large class sizes. I don't think that should stop our children from learning and engaging in these wonderful opportunities. It's unfortunate that right now many children do suffer in this way. They're in schools that can't afford music. Music programs are being cut. Unfortunately, it's the child that suffers. The parents, if they would like those types of specialties for their children, usually have to pay out of pocket, and not many parents can afford that.
But do you think it would make more sense to fundraise within a school as opposed to a parent having to take their children elsewhere after school? It would seem like that's more work, more time, more labor intensive, and maybe even more money than if you get the economies of scale for the school.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
To fundraise.
There are
Keep it
very few
in-house.
parents. There are very few parents who can afford to take their children to private music lessons. I think that this needs to start in this school. We need to introduce this. We need to make this a priority, just like math and English.
Yeah.
Music should be part of the curriculum.
You mentioned you have 4 children, but then that means 4 different places to take them. So there's only so much time
Absolutely.
at the end of the day to to handle that.
Mhm.
I was touring a school in Upper Manhattan where they've gotten very creative, and they don't have a band room or a music room, so they do their keyboarding in their math room, and they just take the keyboards out, set them on the desk. So there are ways of getting around. Same thing with gym, having calisthenics and programs inside of the classroom instead of always going out into a gym, because there may be so many students that there's not enough gym periods to have a realistic phys ed program. So
It's unfortunate that the Common Core has mainly focused a lot of attention on the bare minimums of meeting those reading, writing, rote types of education. Um, Having outlets, music, it's comforting for the children. It encourages education of their mind, and hopefully moving forward we can try to find some means of incorporating this into the classroom again. And I know for myself and many people of my generation, we had music in our school. I'm a product of the New York City public education system, and I had foreign language, I had music, we had a wonderful gym, and these are things we need to bring back.
yeah, definitely. Something to consider. Well, it's nice having you, Amy, and
Thank you.
It's nice having a parent that's working. You also maintain a career, I know. You're
Yes.
a registered nurse.
I'm a registered nurse working full-time,
Yeah.
balancing a family full-time. It is challenging, but it is doable.
Yes,
And,
it is.
We can do it. We need to encourage one another rather than criticize.
Yes, very true. Well, it's nice having you, Amy, and look
Thank you.
forward to having you again in the future.
Thank you very much.
So for our app of the week today, we're featuring Chess Free. So Chess Free is a app that's great for teaching your youngster how to play chess, also how to play chess with your youngster if you both have smartphones and a data connection. The interesting thing about Chess Free is they can teach themselves because it allows your child to see all legal moves for a particular piece at that stage of the game. So if you use this app, please feel free to give us feedback and input as to how it worked for you and your child, and hopefully you have some good times playing chess with your student, with your child, with your children. So we leave you today with a Taekwondo performance by Kalaploy Kamonpanyakul. Kalaploy is 9 years old, and she is from PS7. We leave you with her performance. Have a good day.
Yay!
Without using your mind tricks, right? To me.
So we're certainly glad that you joined us today. We hope you enjoyed our interview with Mrs. Schumacher at PS 150 and all the fine work that she's doing there with the gifted and talented and her PTA there, as well as your experiences with Chess Free. If you have any that you'd like to share with us, feel free to contact us either by social media or at the studio. And again, your experiences with New York City Department of Parks, any good videos, we love to feature them as we did with the Taekwondo performance, which we hope you enjoyed as well. We look forward to seeing you on our next show. Have a good day.